which we're not going to bring up anymore. I'm stepping away from 2019.
Every time I think of you, I think of a tweet that you had where someone said something about Greg Rousseau, and you're like, is that the guy that got mud-holed by the FIU offensive line?
Yeah, like I get emotional, I express myself with emotion, but we're backing off all that right now. I don't give a damn about FIU right now. That's so far in the rearview mirror.
I love to hear that. That's amazing. Like, that's awesome, because you really, when you are 10th in the country in recruiting, coming off a 6-7 year, like, you really do, like, obviously we have to wait until they get back on the field, but right now you really just have to tip your cap and say, hell yeah, Manny.
You do. And there's still a couple of guys still out there. We still got the defensive tackle Collins.
Mm-hmm.
He's looking at Florida, and we're all waiting for August 6th. I think that's the big date. It's a special date.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Leonard Taylor.
Yes, sir. Leonard Taylor. I'll be down in the Florida Keys for when he makes that announcement. So I'll be in the homeland. What was that?
What are you doing? You vacation?
Yeah, going down to, because we have our house in Hollywood. We're good. Yeah, we're just gonna go down to the Keys for a weekend and then just hanging out. Honestly, yeah, vacation. Hopefully I'll be covering a few fall camp practices and things like that, and we'll see how long I stay.
Nice. Be careful down there in those Keys. Those weirdos down there. They lost their lobster season, so that's all they have.
Did they cancel that?
They canceled it.
Wow.
And I like lobster. And when I was a kid, I could have the energy to chase those things around and grab them or whatever. But now I just look at the lobster mini season and the regular season, and you're like, just shut it down. Like, every time, like, 4 or 5 people drowned, people don't come back up, people go missing, and it's a big deal. You know?
Yeah, we always go down for mini season. We've been doing that since I was a kid. But have any of the recent commits for the Canes, like, stick out to you, like James Williams or, one of the wide receivers? Has anyone caught your attention?
I'm not a big wide receiver guy. My buddy Jeff and I were talking about this. We did a podcast yesterday that kind of went off the rails, and we started talking about football. And the fishing videos I did, or I put out there, my best friend, Captain Jeff, he played at St. Thomas Aquinas, played corner, and then played for UConn under Vernon Hargraves, who ended up being, a defensive coach for the University of Miami. And he was talking about he just doesn't like offensive players. And I'm like the same way. So the big safety, of course, I love him, but the game's changed so much now that if we could clone Sean Taylor, while he'd be great in coverage, those licks, you're not allowed to do that no more.
True. Yeah, I mean, that James Williams size, I was just writing, I just finished an article on him. I think he's 6'4", 220.
Yeah.
And people are expecting him to, fill out even more, which is just incredible. And he's so quick and he's so fluid on the football field. I mean, he's the number one player in the state of Florida, the number one safety in America. It still blows my mind that we were somehow able to get him back in this class.
I think a lot of things are factoring into this, Like, first and foremost, we're going to give Manny the credit for getting the job, and his staff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's not pretend that head coaches own recruiting classes. You know what I mean? Like, Butch gets a lot of credit for the 2000 and 2001 teams, but those position coaches like Solinger and Kehoe and those other dudes, they're putting in work, and these assistant coaches are putting in serious work, and Manny's getting the glory for it.
Yeah. I mean, you have to give it up. Ed Reed is doing an incredible job. Coach Banda and the new guy, Coach Likens at receiver. But I just love this coaching staff that he's putting together. And I honestly, in my lifetime as a fan, I've never been this confident in a Hurricanes coaching staff. I wasn't really old enough to appreciate guys like Solinger and Kehoe, but right now I love Rhett Lashley, love Rob Likens, Garen Justice, and Manny just has to win. Just has to win.
Just has to win. And I'll tell you, like I said, moving forward, you can go back and check my timeline. I looked at it earlier, and I think it was like October or November of 2019. I was like, 2020 is going to be worse than 2019. I did not mean what's currently happening in the world. You know what I mean? Whereas 2020 is like the worst year in the history of the United States in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So with all the developments, everything that's happened, I had a rough end to 2019 and start of 2020. And I just came to the realization, I'm like, that like losing when you stink is nowhere near as painful. As bad as the losses were at the end of the season, we stunk. It's way worse losing when you're good, like the Fiesta Bowl. You know what I mean? So it kind of got away from him. Whatever happened, there was obviously some like really, really toxic chemistry with that offensive coordinator and this and that. And the scores aren't indicative. Like, Miami isn't a shutout against La Tech.
Oh, God.
A lot of factors are at play. And now we're here. And it seems they've turned it around. And I don't have a number. I think we've talked this before on your pod. I don't have a win total because crazy stuff can happen. And you can win games that you should have lost and lose games that you should win. But the overall picture of the team, like, are they getting better? Are they competing? Are they not quitting? Mm-hmm. And everyone knows it when they saw it. Remember, we all watched it. I mean, you guys are young, but everybody had the eureka moment when we beat UCLA. Mm-hmm. And it was like, oh, wow, now this is working. Like, Butch had some terrible, terrible losses.
Yeah.
Bad ones. East Carolina and some other ones.
Oh, yeah.
But then it started gelling. Right, Syracuse. Then it started gelling, and they weren't perfect then. I think that was 99, right, UCLA?
98.
Yes. 98, okay. It started gelling. Like, wow, this team gets it now. So if we play in 2020, I'm not like hand on my hips, arms folded or whatever. Like if Manny doesn't win 10 games, he can win 7 games, 8 games to me, as long as the team looks like, wow, they're only, a super receiver away from, winning 9 games or this and that. It's just the general outlook of the team has to improve, and I think they will.
Well, and I look at it a lot like, so in 1997, with Butch Davis as the coach, I think that was the last year of the NCAA violations and everything. Miami went 5-6, and I remember in the 30 for 30, Damian Lewis was saying how a lot of people consider that the worst year in Miami Hurricanes history, but it was the start of the greatest run in Miami history. And I'm not saying like in 2020 we're about to go on a run that equals the early 2000s or anything, but I keep telling people 2019, it was necessary. Yeah. Like it had to happen, and it had to happen in that brutal of a fashion because it woke like Manny Diaz's ass up. Like it woke the program up, and like they realized they had to make changes, significant changes.
Yeah, and he did. I just don't understand. I'm a loyal person and stuff. I might do the same thing that Golden did if my best friend was my defensive coordinator and just hold out and be like, dude, we're getting paid until they throw us all out of here. But you just have to think, like, especially with the resources that Miami has on defense, that you can pick up the phone and talk to Ed Reed or Jimmy Johnson or Ray Lewis or, Russell Maryland or whoever, and that Golden was just belligerent and would not take any help.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. I don't get that.
Yeah,
that bugged me.
I'm one of the biggest Golden stands in the Miami fan base, but I mean that is just the whole defensive side of the ball under his tenure is it's indefensible what happened. It's just like you said, it's negligent. It's there's no other word to describe it except for that he was being a stubborn idiot on the defensive side of the ball. And
Rick was the same too.
Yeah. Dude, that's nepotism at its finest, man. I mean, that's what it causes. That's why you don't You know, the Miami Board of Trustees, they should never again hire a guy that's going to hire, make a hire out of nepotism. You know, that should be like one of our contract writers, like like the brown M&Ms from David Lee Roth, right? So I don't know, man. That screwed us so many times. We can just never let that happen again.
No.
Yeah. So you are giving Manny the stamp of approval right now, then?
For sure. He's got those Palmetto kids.
Yeah.
And he's got them at positions that matter. You know, for the last 20 years or whatever, we've been tight end U. And like, okay, great. Mm-hmm. Like Olsen or whatever is going to be a Hall of Famer. He's going to be the next guy on Monday Night Football or whatever. But I can't remember the big Olsen moment in college. Like, wow. You know, Winslow had a couple.
And I'm like, when you have Kyle Wright as your quarterback, it's hard.
Right. It's tough. But now, like, if he gets that defensive tackle, the Taylor kid, like, that's a position that really impacts.
Well, and you know, like we talked about it on I think our last show, where Miami has such a rich history at defensive tackle, like Russell Maryland, Cortez Kennedy, Warren Sapp, Jerome Brown. But in the last 10, 15 years, besides one good year by Gerald Willis, we haven't had that superstar, a guy that can change the game. Like,
well, that's a real money bag position too.
And I think Leonard Taylor is that kind of defensive tackle.
He's that kind of defensive tackle. He's not financially desperate like a lot of players are, but that's one of the positions that gets the bag. Like defensive tackle, that changes your whole program. You get a good one. A good center changes your whole team. So the SEC has been throwing money around here for decades because that's a real position. If you're like, you're going to drop a couple $100,000 on a player, it's going to be like a defensive tackle or a pass rusher or a quarterback.
Yeah. Well, it's a grown man position. I mean, to make an impact, you have to almost be NFL ready, you know, and just collapse these offensive lines. And I mean, imagine the success that we're going to have, you know, especially if one of these 3 New York kids that we got last year pans out. You know, hopefully all of them do, but I'm saying if at least we can get one, and then we can pair them with Leonard Taylor for the future, and then all of the edge rushing talent that we've brought in over the last few years. I mean, we are so loaded on the edge.
Well,
dude,
and
just imagine Taylor.
Like our second,
I mean, just imagine,
would be insane.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
We're going to have some of the most talented defensive units in the next 5 years in college football. I mean, I can
strength of like those Miami teams and stuff. If you're strong up the middle, like defensive tackle, middle linebacker, safety, like that's tough to beat. And Miami's like unmatched in defensive tackles because there's not like another school where you can rip off, 7 defensive tackles that have been phenomenal. They have one, like that Aaron Donald kid from Pitt. That's one kid they've had in 40 years.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. So let me ask you this, Duck. Have you been seeing the UF fans lose their mind on Twitter recently?
I don't, because I don't follow any of them. I don't follow any Knowles, but I see the reactions. I see everybody reacting, and I guess they like went into the gutter and made Sean Taylor jokes. And I mean, that's sad. You never know who you're arguing with on Twitter. It could be a 13-year-old, But no,
do you have more? Who is the biggest rival for you when it comes to the Canes? Is it Florida or Florida State?
Jeez, like in my heart, like the hate is Notre Dame.
Okay.
There's a little bit of mutual respect for the Knowles, and I hate the Gators, but we never play enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's been so lopsided. What if they've won twice in 30-something years?
Yeah. They act like they're so high and mighty. Like,
right.
They haven't done anything in the last 10 years. And besides the 2-3 years with Tebow, like, what the hell did
was
they do?
13 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Like, besides